Oh. How's it going, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to today's video where we are going to be ranking all of the best teams in Galaxy of Heroes. This seemed to be a pretty helpful guide when I made this back in August. So you can kind of have an idea in terms of where the meta is right now. And this is very helpful, of course, for Arena, but especially for Grand Arena, because Grand Arena, you got to make a variety of teams for offense and defense, and you kind of want to know what you're about to go up against. How good are those teams that your opponent is placing as well? So thank you guys so much for liking the video and commenting on that last one. Hopefully you do enjoy this one, because we got a nice little fancy graphic for November 2019, all the best teams ranked. So let's just get this started by starting with the wildcard characters. Last time we talked about wildcard characters towards the end, but I want to start with this real quick because wildcard characters can be used anywhere. These are some of your best all-around characters in Galaxy. You can plug them in a variety of teams, such as Captain Rex. He has both a wild card leadership and he's a wild card character. So I didn't put a Captain Rex team on here because really Captain Rex can be paired with any type of character and you're gonna have some sort of a team. And then other characters like Watambor and Nest are some of the ultimate plug and play characters. Watambor may be the best all-around plug and play character you can put in any type of lineup and he will be useful. So keep these characters in mind because you can plug these in a variety of teams. So I wanted to kind of give you an idea of what characters look for. So let's start off at the bottom and work our way to the top. Let's talk about the Carbonite branch. Another little thing to point out. Yes, there are so many teams out there that you can create, and this graphic isn't going to be able to fit all of them in there because there's a lot of ways to compose a lot of teams, but these are going to be some of the more popular and most used teams you're going to be seeing in the game, and Carbonite is kind of the lower end of the branch. These teams, they're not going to be that good. They can get something done, but by and large, they're very easy to beat on defense, and they don't take on too much on the offense. And you got things like Tarkin and Krennic. They're just Empire characters, and they aren't fantastic leaderships, but there's something to kind of hold on to your Empire characters for the time being. And then you got things like Boba Fett and Captain Phasma, a very catch-all beginner type of teams that you can create with these guys, and they're not going to be too amazing, going up against the better teams we're going to see soon. And then Qui-Gon Jinn, probably going to be the most early game Jedi leader you can have until you get a hold of Bastila Shan. So don't expect too much with these guys on the offensive and defensive, and you should be able to beat these teams quite easily if you do come across them. But let's start getting into more interesting things by moving up to the next tier and talking about the Bronzium branch for this list. Now the Bronzium branch, this is where you could start getting some sort of work done. We're still not at the point where these teams are going to be god tier amazing. They're going to be smashing characters left and right, but you can get stuff done. Commander Luke, we talked about this a little bit in the last video. Commander Luke kind of has various stages that you build up against, and in the Bronzium tier, this is going to be the tier when you don't have things like Chewbacca and C-3PO. You can still form a very solid rebel team, and you don't need Sheridan Bays, but that used to be one of the more dominating Commander Luke teams way back in the past, like 2017. Ewoks are kind of a fun bunch of characters here. They do beat a lot of stuff out there, but they're not that difficult to beat, so they're still a good team. They could beat a lot of things like First Order. They could beat some Commander Luke teams. As long as you have them well modded, you can get a lot of work kind of out of the Ewoks. And then you see a bunch of other random like Empire teams drawn with all these characters. Used to be pretty good kind of during the same period where that Commander Luke team at the top was kind of dominant. And then you have things like Darth Maul. Darth Maul is kind of your beginner Sith team that you can just throw a bunch of Sith in and it'll do all right, but you're not going to get too many crazy things done with Darth Maul. And then Phoenix, a team that pretty much everyone has to build at one point or another. They're still an okay team. They can get stuff done, and I do see some Gear 13 Phoenix teams out there, and if you underestimate them too much, they could possibly surprise you. Now we're moving into the Chromium tier right here, and this is kind of interesting because the Chromium tier is kind of the teams where you're going to be probably dipping into the most. These guys can punch up a little bit into the Rhodium tier, and also they can kind of easily beat those Bronzium and Carbonite teams, and they also can kind of beat themselves in this same category. It's kind of a fun route, and Newt Gunray, I think, honestly kind of really highlights this category perfectly because he can easily punch up a little bit into that next Rhodium tier, and he really dominates a lot of the teams that is in his bracket as well. He's not going to be god tier, but because of how his kit works, he's a fantastic offensive character using. And as you see here, you're going to get these little gold circles. I didn't mention them, but you can kind of plug in whatever characters you want in those slots just to kind of give you an idea of what the core is, and you can work with other characters you can fit in there, such as Jango Fett, Asajj Ventress, B2 Super Badger. The list kind of goes on and on and on. The Commander Luke team starts to improve here once you add Chewbacca, because hypothetically you probably should be getting Chewbacca before you get C-3PO, and then you can move your Commander Luke up to the next branch. And really, this team right here can beat quite a lot of things. It could kind of beat in into that category with Darth Trey. Chewbacca was an important component to start making Darth Trey not as relevant anymore. Emperor Palpatine and Vader, and insert 3 characters of your choice, whether Empire, Sith, or maybe underdog it a little bit and try to go for those extra banners if you're trying to use this for Grand Arena. Jedi Training Rey as well. She's kind of another one of those catch-all type of things for droid and resistance. So Jedi Training Rey and BB are kind of the core. You need that to get a team going for Jedi Training Rey. And then you can insert random droids. Rey is known to foster all these droids under her lead. Kylo Ren, a great kind of solid middle of the rung team in this game, losing viability over time. I suspect the next time I make this video, Kylo Ren will be moving up, probably into the Erodium tier, because they said they are releasing first order characters and probably some reworks if I had to guess. Now, I know I only showed Jango Fett in this list right here, but really I'm just trying to say that Bounty Hunters are a very good middle of the rung team. You could do Boss Lead or Jango Lead. Those are 2 of the more better Bounty Hunter leaders. I think Jango Fett is better than Boss, because Jedi Training Rey and a bad group of characters can really own a boss team. Jango Fett's a lot more difficult to beat, and he could beat things like Darth Trey, which is kind of interesting. And then we got some other stuff. Imperial Troopers are kind of barely on this list. I was almost about to put them in the Bronze tier, but they could be a lot of things on here, such as the Bounty Hunters, First Order, Jedi Training Rey, and some Commander Luke and Newt Gunray teams, but they're still not, they're losing viability over time a little bit. Then I think Bastila Shan and Yoda, you can throw in 3 other Jedi under her lead, and you're going to get yourself kind of the next best Jedi team until you get a hold of Jedi Knight Revan. Erodium time, baby. This is where you start getting a little taste of what almost Kyber level teams can do. And this is where we start seeing the ultimate Commander Luke team, which composed of Commander Luke, Chewbacca, Han, C-3PO. That's kind of the main bunch to get the best Commander Luke team. And then in that fit slot, I put R2-D2, but you could do things like Old Ben, Wat Tambor. Some people do Scarecrow, the Pathfinder. There's a lot of weird stuff you can put in that last slot, or even Nest herself. Shakti's the babysitter for the clones until General Skywalker takes them away from her, and she creates a fantastic clone team, whether it's going to have Clone Sergeant, which is the one I normally go for, but some people put Barriss or R2-D2 in there. The best Shakti lineup, in my opinion, is going to have Jedi Knight Anakin, but realistically, people are probably going to be using that with their Padme Amidala, but I just wanted to kind of throw it on there for you. Darth Revan, without Malik, he is not a top tier team. He gets beaten by a lot of things without Malik, but even so, he's a very good second tier team in this game if you don't have Darth Malik, and you can use things like Sith Marauder or Sith Assassin to compose that second tier Darth Revan lineup. Night Sisters are probably one of the most annoying teams in the game. Before we made this video back in August, there was no relics. A lot of this table changed mainly because of relics and the Clone Trooper reworks, of course. And relic Night Sisters are so deadly. They're fast, they put out huge damage, they revive, they stun. It's a very annoying team, and you can do a lot of things. You can do Asajj lead or Mother Talzin lead. I find the Asajj lead to be a lot more difficult to handle, in my opinion. You can throw things like Nest, of course, in there, or take out Mother Talzin or Night Sister Spirit, put in Old Daka. Night Sisters have a lot of flexibility, and I actually bumped them up. They were a Chromium tier team before. I moved them up to Erodium mainly because relics and Gear 13 and all that made Night Sisters a very deadly team. Back then, we didn't know too much about Geonosians. Geonosians were still kind of a new team, but to this day, we know Geonosians are kind of like a Night Sister annoying team, or only a couple teams can beat them. Even some of these characters, or some of these teams in this Erodium tier, they have a hard time dealing with Geonosians. So you got to be really careful with what teams you bring in, because you kind of have to bring one of those Kyber teams or a fellow Erodium tier, because sometimes those lower teams, such as the Chromium and Bronze, they have a hard time beating the Geonosian lineup. And then IGD and the droids, surprisingly, although its biggest highlight is beating things like Darth Revan and Malik, a very important counter for punching up into that Kyber territory a little bit, it also does fine against some other things. You see the IG-88, he could beat the Geonosians quite well, because Geonosians hate massive AoE damage, and IG-88 and that droid team is just all about massive AoE damage. It could beat things like Palpatine and whatnot. So it kind of it plays around in both the Kyber, Erodium, and Chromium tier. I think it's a solid glass cannon team to kind of talk about here. Padme Amidala, if you don't have access to things like General Kenobi or C-3PO, you can create yourself a good Erodium tier team. You could do things like Chewbacca and Barriss. There's just a lot of options there to kind of make an Erodium tier based Padme lineup, but we gotta talk about the creme de la creme of Galaxy, the very best teams, the Kyber level. These are the top end teams. This is the top end of the meta in the game. These are the teams, if you see on defense, you better make sure you have something in your arsenal that can handle it, because things like General Skywalker, a proper Darth Revan team, Grievous, a proper Padme team, and Jedi Knight Revan, those are very difficult teams to beat, and not a lot of stuff below that can punch up. But some things can, such as the Commander Luke, the Padme sometimes, and the Shakti, but really you gotta be careful. Kyber level characters can only really be beaten by each other in the same tier, and some of those Erodium characters do punch up a little bit and kind of claw at those top end teams, but it's still a struggle for some Erodium characters. Obviously, General Skywalker, there should be a little star here. The 7-star General Skywalker is the Kyber level team. A 5-star, 6-star Skywalker is more of an Erodium based team that progressively gets better once you scale up Anakin's gear, stars, and relics, of course. I mean, Darth Revan, like, they don't really need much of an introduction. They've been meta basically since early this year in 2019. Grievous relics did a huge favor for the Separatists as well. They were an Erodium based team. Last time I made this video, they got bumped up a bit because, man, a relic out Grievous and relic out droids, it is deadly. Massive AoE damage, turn meter removal, lots of turn meter gain. This team is insane, and it's a very difficult team to beat. Arguably, probably the second or third most difficult team to beat in this game right now. Hammy Amidala, you need the C-3PO and the Kenobi to really bump this up to the Kyber level territory. Kind of like Grievous, only so many things can beat this team right here, so it's tough to really find counters for it. You only got like a couple like Traya, Jedi Knight Revan, Darth Revan, General Skywalker, and Grievous, but really the list kind of gets shortened at that point. And Jedi Knight Revan kind of barely holding on to the Kyber territory. He is still a fantastic character, creates a fantastic Jedi team, but basically everything that was released this year was to mitigate Jedi Knight Revan's effectiveness. But even over a year later of him being in the game, I still think he's a Kyber level team because he beats basically almost everything. General Skywalker is basically the one thing he can't really beat. And that right there, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be all your best teams for Grand Arena / Arena in Galaxy of Heroes. Hopefully this kind of gives you an idea of what teams you should be forming. If you're someone that's not familiar with squad compositions, what the best characters are, what are the best teams, hopefully this video was helpful to kind of give you an idea of the very best teams in Galaxy of Heroes, so you can kind of know what you should be placing on defense, what you should be saving in offense, and you can kind of estimate the difficulty you're about to walk into when you see some of these teams on your opponent's defense or when you're climbing up arena. Thank you so much for watching. Like if you did enjoy the video, comment down below on your thoughts. Are there any other teams you might think are relevant to kind of throw on here? Maybe some like teams should be moved around a little bit. Would love to hear your thoughts for the next time we make this video in about 3 months. So like if you did enjoy, comment down below, and subscribe so you're not missing a thing. I think I already said those things already. Whatever the case may be, and I'll talk to all of you lovely people in the next video. Peace out, everyone.